Good morning, all. So today, before I starting this webinar, we have to follow few general rules, such as participants can put the question in the live chat only. Feedback form link will be given at live chat box within 10 minutes before the ending of the session, and to get certificate of participation, submission of feedback form is compulsory. And after successful submission of the feedback form, each participant will get the e-certificate by mail within 2 weeks from the webinar date. Now, I'm starting this webinar, myself Moitri Maiti, and welcome you all to the platform of Legum Literates and today's webinar that the impact of COVID-19 on older person and legal challenges. Legum Literates is an organization which is run by legal professionals, academicians, as well as students who aim towards contributing to legal education, practices, and scholarship. We look after the law students' welfare by empowering them with the knowledge, experience, wisdom, and information. We conduct a wide range of competitions and events just like quiz, debates, webinars, and interviews of successful candidates who qualified in legal services, civil services, judicial services, including those who had been serving the society for a long. Legum Literates is a platform which is created to channelize the interest, talent, and research in favor of law students by widening their horizon as they are the very foundation of the legal fraternity who will serve the society in the future. And with all these objectives, we are happy to begin our second national webinar. Well, we are honored to have Professor Dr. JAYANTA SAHA, Sir, Professor and Head of the Department of Law, Bankura University, with us in our second national webinar as distinguished speaker. We welcome you, sir. Now, I have a very good opportunity to introduce our respected sir. Sir has completed his bachelor's in BCom from the University of Burdwan. He graduated in law from the University of Burdwan and also pursued masters in law, LLM and PhD from the University of Burdwan. Our honorable speaker sir, he has served in many colleges and universities as lectures in law, assistant professor, associate professor, and professor in law. Currently, he is serving as professor and head of the Department of Law, Bankura University. Apart from his academic brilliancy, he has also made a mark in the administrative field too. Presently, Sir also working as the Inspector of Colleges, Additional Charge of Bankura University. Previously, Sir has worked as Dean of the Faculty Officiating of Bankura University, worked as Acting Vice Chancellor of Bankura University, worked as Legal Advisor of the University of Burdwan, and worked as Principal in Charge of Bengal Law College, Santiniketan. Sir has research interest in gerontology, environmental law, human rights, Australian studies, and artificial intelligence. He has specialization on constitutional law, administrative law, and corporate law. Sir has successfully presented articles and writings in many national and international seminars, and he has played an important role on many national and international projects too. Sir has played an important role as a research guide of many scholars. 7 scholars already awarded with the degree of PhD, and 6 scholars are now working under Sir's supervision and guidance. Now, I request to our honorable speaker, Professor Dr. Jayanta Kumar Saha, sir, to take over the webinar and start the session. Welcome you, sir.
Thank you, Moitri. Good morning, everybody. Good morning, my students. First, thank you very much for kindly inviting me to this national webinar, which is very significant initiative. especially in this very challenging time when we are separated from each other. I heartily congratulate the organizers Legum Literates, but I think which is a platform of law students of different universities. And many thanks for taking initiative to organize this program in this virtual platform. It's always a pleasure for me to interact with our students. But before going through the detail of today's lecture topic, impact of COVID-19 on older persons and legal challenge, I must mention here that one word was missing in the topic title, that is rights. It means the revised topic is impact of COVID-19 on older persons' rights and legal challenge. So kindly rectify the topic's title. So far as this topic is concerned, the rights of the older persons are almost same as well as the COVID-19 situation. And I have acquired some experience as an academic research fellow in our country and abroad in this particular subject, which today I want to share my views with you. I have some work experience in gerontology as a research associate in the UGC UKRI thematic partnership project with Swansea University in United Kingdom. So let's start. And one thing more, it's not possible for me to share the screen with you due to some technical fault of my laptop. Instead of that, I am using my smartphone. Please excuse for that. You know, public health legislation plays an important role in the containment of any epidemic or pandemic. And during a pandemic, it might be necessary to override the existing laws or individual, which includes older people human rights for the containment of the pandemic. The objective of this lecture is to review the legal framework of the older people's right pertaining to COVID-19 pandemic preparedness in India. And it is an unsystematic narrative review where various legislations were assembled from electronic database websites from different legislative and ministries. So this lecture tries to discuss the need for the law in a crisis like this, and mainly the older people rights that had been implemented during lockdown. So first of all, we have to discuss about why it is so important to promote the rights of the older people. You appreciate that senior citizens of our society are the treasure of our society. They link with past, present, and future. They can pass family values to the upcoming generation. If you tender your respect for older people's rights, society will get benefits as a whole. Why? Because older people make key contributions to any society through their experience and wisdom. And better protection of older people's rights will allow societies to better capitalize on the potential older people. But sometimes many of them are too scared to express themselves or fear being humiliated by their loved ones. Elders desires a life with good health, dignity, economic independence, and finally a peaceful death. They long for care, love, and affection. If you understand their needs and concerns, it will ensure their good health. So, if we want to give some honor to our elders, then we should spend time with them and listen intently, be polite, sometimes ask for advice, eat together with your parents, with your aged family members, discuss family heritage, history, and traditions. Sometimes call them, tell them how much you appreciate and respect them. And sometimes you also visit senior living communities. So, in this way, we show our respect to our senior citizens. But what is the general senior scenario? The general scenario has completely different. From my research study in my own country and also the United Kingdom, we have identified some of the common problems to the elder people. But firstly, I must say that according to the National Council on Aging, about 92% of seniors have at least one chronic disease, and 77% have at least two chronic diseases. What type of diseases? Like cognitive health, mental health, physical injury, HIV, AIDS, other sexually transmitted diseases, malnutrition, oral health, and also some substance abuse. In a society where there are poor facilities for sanitation, infrastructure, healthcare, it is the elderly people who suffer the most. And as per the Age Well Foundation's Human Rights of Elderly in India survey in 2015, it was found that the elderly in India suffers some problems like lack of gainful engagement opportunities, declining health status, lack of respect in family and society, loneliness, isolation, some psychological issues, some financial problems, legal issues, and also some interpersonal problems. But the elderly has no institutional care or medical system around them and have to depend on community care, family care to support them in India. But in UK, the sons or daughters, they are not live with their parents in most of the cases. And generally, elder women are seen to have no time for leisure or recreation and have lesser possibilities than men to lead retired life. You know it very well. And elderly suffer lack of emotional care, support, and elder abuse more in urban areas than rural areas. The older people also lack some physical and psychological problems, which includes health and medical problems, nutritional deficiency, and the problem of adequate housing. And they also face psychosocial problem. What is psychosocial problem? Which includes and related with their psychological and social maladjustment, as well as the problem of elder abuse. So, along with the social, medical, and psychological issues, there exist many economic issues. And this economy dependency high among females. In case of disadvantaged section, the dependency level is even higher. So you know that economic necessity forces the elderly people to work and earn the money. Economic problems, which include such problems as loss of employment, income deficiency, and also income insecurity. So this shows the lack of social security to support the old aged people. Even the governmental policies and norms are not efficient enough to assure this type of security. And our study also identified the incidence of loan taken to meet the medical expenditure of the elderly. We also see in our research time that they also have some isolation and loneliness problem. Seniors tend to have fewer opportunities for social engagement than younger age groups. They retire from jobs, children move away, friends and spouses pass away, and eventually they may become housebound if they lose the ability to drive or become ill. And mourning is always a difficult experience. But because so many seniors lost a spouse, it is a particular problem in their lives. The grief that follows the loss of a spouse can last many years and can involve anxiety, depression, loneliness, and also other issues. Of all these problems, loneliness is perhaps the most common and most difficult to overcome. So the aged people are very much needed some protective measures from the legislations, from the law. So the issue of the protection of elderly persons' rights becomes very sensitive. Although in our present days, there is a random upliftment of our lives towards a modern and globalized society, the traditional norms and status of senior citizen are randomly degraded. They lack physical, financial, and social security. And also, the hello, hello, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Can you
Yes,
hear
sir.
me? Okay,
Yes, sir.
okay,
Yes,
okay,
sir.
okay.
Yes, sir.
Actually, load shedding occurs. That's why I
Yeah,
moved
yeah. Okay, sir.
to the
Okay, sir.
our
Please
mobile
continue,
data.
sir.
Okay, okay. So the older people, they lack physical, financial, and emotional support, and they are totally exposed to such a vulnerable situation where there is no one to act as a balm to soften their pain. But anybody has some responsibility to look after the senior citizens' problems. And sometimes they are very much feeling anxiety. And to eradicate this agony, some legislative measures are taken into force. But to some extent, these are inadequate to cope up all the complicated and problematic situations. So if I go through the detail of our constitutional provisions, we see that Article 21 of the Indian Constitution protects life and personal liberty of an individual. But the judicial intervention expands the scope of Article 21, by which include the various types of rights, including right to enjoyment of pollution-free and healthy environment, the right to health and medical care, emergency aid to medical facilities, right to livelihood, right to have a dignified life, right to social security, and right to live with proper or just reputation of a person. So these particular, the judgment of the Supreme Court extends the spirit of Article 21 of the Constitution. And some provisions have been made in the Constitution of India to preserve the rights of those aged above 60. So since chapter 4 of the Constitution, which corresponds to directive principles, they cannot be enforced by a court of law, as stated in Article 37. But however, they are the basis upon which any legislation is drafted. If we go through the Article 14 of the Constitution, we see that this particular provision secures the right of the senior citizens to employment, education, and public assistance. And it also ensures that the state must uphold these rights in cases of disability, old age, or sickness. Meanwhile, Article 46 asserts that the educational and economic rights of the elderly must be protected by the state. So, as per rights guaranteed under the National Policy for Older Persons in 1999, all Indian citizens aged above 60 are entitled to a 30% concession in ticket process while traveling with the Indian Railways. The concession is 50% for women aged above 60, along with the provision for separate counters and other services, including birth request. And Air India, the government air company, is also bound to provide a concession of 40% to senior citizens at the time of taking a booking for economy class. So this policy, national policy, also binds Indian air carriers to aid senior citizens with special care, such as allowing them to board and deboard before others, or providing them with wheelchairs whenever required, because these wheelchairs are very much necessary sometimes for the senior citizens. And if we go through the different religions law, we see that these laws, varying laws, in place to protect the interest of senior citizens, some are very particular, such as the statutory provision for maintenance of parents under Hindu personal law, contained in section 20 of the Hindu Adoption and Maintenance Act 1956. This particular Hindu Adoption and Maintenance Act is the first personal law statute in India which imposes an obligation on the children to maintain their parents. The obligation to maintain parents is not confined to sons only, and daughters also have an equal duty towards parents. And it is important to note that only those parents who are financially unable to maintain themselves from any source are entitled to seek maintenance under this act. So, while we are talking about these rights of the senior citizens and about the laws which are protect the rights of the older people, because so far as the present condition, it means at the time of COVID-19, when we are confined with our home and in a general time, there is no difference because the rights of the older peoples are there. So we have to know what type of legal provisions are there and what type of provisions are protect the rights of the older people. So if we go through the section 20 of the Hindu Marriage and Adoption Act 1956, it makes it obligatory provisions to maintain aged parents. And sometimes similar laws are found in Muslim laws, Christian laws, and even in Parsi laws. If we talk about Muslim law, it's we see that children have a duty to maintain their aged parents. And according to Mullah, children in easy circumstances are bound to maintain their poor parents, although the latter may be able to earn something for themselves. This is the basic difference between the Hindu law and the Muslim law. In Muslim law, a son, a, a son of a particular parents, when he wants to maintain his father, maybe he is poor and is earning something, but he is bound to support his father who earns nothing. So this is a very, very important provision in Muslim law. But Christians and Parsis have no personal laws providing for maintenance for the parents. Parents who wish to seek maintenance have to apply under provisions of the criminal code. Under section 125 of the Criminal Procedure Code, the elder parents can claim maintenance from their children. But prior to 1973, there was no provision for maintenance of parents under the code. The Law Commission, however, was not in favor for making such provision. Law Commission opines that the CRPC is not the proper place for such a provision. There will be considerably difficult in the amount of maintenance awarded to parents, and it is desirable to leave this matter for adjudication by civil courts. But the provision was introduced for the first time in section 125 of the Code of Criminal Procedure in 1973. It is also essential that the parent establishes that the other party has sufficient means and has neglected or refused to maintain his parents, who is unable to maintain himself. And it is also important to note that CRPC 1973 is a secular law and governs persons belonging to all religions and communities. So this is not anybody's law. This is for everybody. So in this particular law, Daughters, including married daughters, also have a duty to maintain their parents. And so far as legal provisions are concerned, there are also some provisions for the older people relating to income tax. You know that there are so many sections of the income tax of India which allows senior citizens to claim a discount in tax. So the elderly are also entitled to get higher interest on tax saving plans, apart from having a wide variety of LIC policies and post office saving schemes to choose from. But the most important act which was introduced by the Parliament is Maintenance and Welfare of Parents and Senior Citizens Act 2007. And many experts have stressed the importance of clearer legislation to safeguard the rights and interests of senior citizens in India. So, right now, I am not discussing about this particular act, it is because this is very important act which I will discuss it later. But before that, I want to analyze how the older people's rights are dealt with internationally. The question of aging was first debated at the United Nations in 1948 at the initiative of Argentina. And the issue was again raised by Malta Convention in 1969. And in 1971, the General Assembly asked the Secretary General to prepare a comprehensive report on the elderly and to suggest some guidelines for the national and international action. So for that, the India is also the part of that particular assembly, and India also signed the document of that particular convention, and India also insert some provisions of law in their own legislations. So sometimes the older persons should have access to health care to help them maintain the optimum level of physical, mental, and emotional well-being. So, as per the international obligations, which actually also the obligation of the domestic laws, at that time, the legislatures insert some provisions of law as per the directions of the international conventions. So another question now comes, is there any role of judiciary towards senior citizens? Whether the judiciary extends the rights of the older people? You know, the judiciary plays a very important role as the protector of the constitution and the basic guarantees given to citizens of the country. The rule of law is the backbone of our democracy, and the primary responsibility for implementation of the rule of law lies with the judiciary. And the scope of writ jurisdiction has also been expanded to uphold the human dignity and fundamental human rights. I just cite two important cases relating to older people's rights. In Jogesh Sadhwani versus Commissioner of Police 2015 case, a public interest litigation case was filed on behalf of Mrs. Joyshree Golkar. This case brought forth a complete failure of the execution of the Maintenance and Welfare of Parents and Senior Citizens Act 2007. The court directed the state to file affidavit, mention therein the steps taken, what type of steps they should be taken. Number one, to establish tribunal under Section 7, designate a maintenance officer under Section 18, for establishment of old age homes under Section 19, to give medical support to the senior citizen as under Section 20, and for publicity awareness for welfare of the senior citizens under Section 21. So this case, therefore, is an example of judicial intervention to question the efficacy of the executive. Another important case in S.P. Gupta versus Union of India, AIR 1982. And relate with it another case, recent case, Santosh Surendra Patil versus Surendra Naras Gupta Patil, 2017. In this case, the litigating parties in the case were parents and their sons. The respondent was the son of the petitioner and was appealing against an order of vacation of the residential premises owned and constructed by the petitioners. The court went on to discuss the need for the enactment of Maintenance and Welfare of Parents and Senior Citizens Act 2007. The moral duty to take care of one's parents was crystallized a legal responsibility under this act. Though this is not desirable at all, the state also takes itself the guardianship of senior citizens and old infirm parents. The eviction order was upheld by the court, as such an order is permissible under Section 23 of the Act of 2007. So, by this, we also see there are so many other landmark judgments which directly help to uplift the vulnerable position of the deprived senior citizen. Right to have shelter, right to free legal aid, right to speedy trial, right against inhuman treatment, and some of those rights. So the apex court has held that the state is bound to protect the life and liberty of every human being, whether he is a citizen or non-citizen. And apex court also held that the people who are starving because of their inability to purchase food grains have right to get food under Article 21, which you think that it is also important at the time of COVID-19. And therefore, they ought to be provided the same free of cost by the states out of surplus stock lying with the states, particularly when it is unused and rotting. The court held that under such a situation, food grains be provided to all those who are aged, infirm, disabled, destitute women, and destitute men also. And the government also initiate some welfare programs, which are government funded schemes to provide financial aid and other such facilities to disadvantaged groups in the community. And we also see in our research that the policy of the government, the programs, the welfare programs of the government, sometimes it changes in society. Some societal values have changed owing to industrialization, urbanization, education, and exposure to lifestyles in also the developed countries. as well as the developing countries. And there are some changes in economy also. You see what type of changes are cropping our day-to-day activities. Higher life expectancy and higher cost to meet with their needs. So these type of national policy recognized that older persons and their concerns were of national importance. So however, certain principal focus areas were recognized by the government and also sometimes some non-governmental organizations. It was recorded that almost two-thirds of the 60 plus population is financially fragile. Old age pension better and effective disbursement of 35 retirement benefits, expansion of pension coverage, favorable taxation policies, right of maintenance. These also help and protects the rights of the senior citizens. Sometimes the healthcare and nutrition are affordable and highly subsidized healthcare for older persons, trust, charitable societies. And these societies would be encouraged to take this up by providing them with tax incentives, special training in care of the elderly, state sponsored hospitalities, spreading awareness about the special needs of older people. So these are the various types of welfare programs taken by the government. And you know that Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment is a nodal agency for the welfare of the elderly people. What are the objectives of Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment? Right now, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yes, Maitri?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay,
Yes,
okay,
sir. We can
okay,
hear you.
okay, okay. So this government right now, they introduced some programs, some policies for the betterment of the older people. It's not possible to discuss it in detail here, but you should know about the name of that policy, that is Rashtriyo Vayasri Yojana. Rashtriyo Vayasri and there are so many. Discuss about the most unique act, that is the Maintenance and Welfare of Parents and Senior Citizens Act 2007. No doubt, this is an important act dealing with dealing with the issue of senior citizens. And this legislation provides for the maintenance of parents and senior citizens. The definition of maintenance covers all necessities and requirements of life. It also includes childless senior citizen. He can claim maintenance from other relative who is legal heir of that senior citizen or who is in possession of or would inherit but he also have a right to claim maintenance from the relative who actually would inherit his property after his death. The state government has to constitute the tribunal, and the tribunal can take cognizance suo motu as well as upon receipt of application by senior citizen. So it is the jurisdiction, and this jurisdiction is very wide. The maximum maintenance allowance may be prescribed by the state government and which shall not exceed rupees 10,000 per month. And the person against whom an order is passed has to comply with the order within 1 month. In holding inquiry, the tribunal may follow some procedure which has all the powers of civil court. So copy of the order should be provided to the parents or senior citizens and should be attested by the tribunal that the order is valid and executed. Cannot be represented by legal practitioners. State government has to establish and maintain old age homes. At least in each district, we shall have minimum 150 senior citizens who are indigent. So this act is having provisions that a senior citizen who has transferred his property either to his children or any near relative by virtue of a will or gift can cancel the same by applying to the tribunal. If he or she is neglected or refused to provide basic amenities, if they are abandoned with an intention by a person to take care of protection, then he is liable to be punished. This act bars the jurisdiction of a civil court and further provides that no injunction shall be granted by any civil court in respect of anything done or intended to be done by or under this act. From this, it appears that senior citizen is now protected from all sides. After this, the passing of this act, various bills came into force to rectify or improve the existing legislation. But so far as this act is concerned, is it sure that this act is sufficient to protect the older people's rights? No. There are many gray areas, many lacunas for which the proper and effective implementation cannot be made possible. So we have to discuss the lacuna parts of this particular act. First of all, maximum monetary relief of rupees 10,000 is provided under this act, which is not adequate to the person who is residing in city or who is suffering from any illness where medical expenses is huge. Not only that, sometimes it appeases that against whom the order is made, the person concerned is rich enough to bear more burden. So this is a great loophole of this act. It must be amended. Secondly, total exclusion of legal professionals and total exclusion of the jurisdiction of civil court is not at all beneficiary. The participation of legal professionals must be optional. The old persons who are indigent can avail the benefits of legal aid. And this act mentions that legal professionals shall be qualified, trained, and able to perform Some, hello, can you
Yes,
hear
sir. Yes,
me?
sir. Yes, sir.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
okay, okay. Some legal technicalities may arise, or some situation may also arise where the presiding officer has to declare any right, title, or interest in favor of the aggrieved party, which is beyond the power of an administrative officer. So, in those situations, the court can handle it more maturity and excellencies. Therefore, total exclusions of court jurisdiction is not justified. The Act allows the state government to establish old age homes. It does not make it mandatory. This is optional. Whether the government establishes a old age homes or not, it is their discretion. So this is not acceptable at all. The Act does not clear the view regarding the taking of responsibility of senior citizens who do not have children or any relative. In that situation, whether state will take the burden or not, and what will be the extent. If the son is indigent, how can he maintain his parents or grandparents? How would the tribunal adjudicate such disputes? So all those provisions should be inserted by new amendments. Another situation may arise where parents who have no son but only daughter and they reside with their daughter and son-in-law, then can son-in-law be included in the definition of children under section 2A when the daughter is non-earning? The purview of the definition should be wider. And another point is worthy to mention here that when the son is rich, NRI, and his parents are living in India, what would be interventional as well as municipal law by which the rich NRI would have no other option but to maintain his parents properly? Therefore, these gray areas should be clarified by effective and proper implementation. So, under this discussion, we must say that though there are several number of laws and government policies made for the protection of rights of senior citizens and old parents, not only the normal time, but also the new normal time, that is COVID-19. But nothing much have been achieved so far. As we all know that our Indian society is blended with culture and emotion. It is really very difficult for parents to drag their children to the doors of court or tribunal, and in most cases, they start forgiving as well as sacrificing their rights. Because of this, the next generation does not have to face the proper lesson. The other side of the story is that when the technicalities of legal procedure enter into a house, love, affection, or bonding between the two generations fades away until the total mindset of our society is changed. Unless they do not believe in the notion that they are complementary and supplementary to each other, no law can change the scenario. And with this, I just quote one beautiful proverb that I slept and dreamed that life was beauty. I woke and found that life was duty. So, without performing the sacred duty, one cannot see the real beautiful life. Sometimes it sounds like a cheerless performance, but somehow, in the end, it will give a lot of satisfaction. So I hope that the rights of the older people, along with the provisions of law, so far as Indian context, and also the international effort, as well as the role of judiciary towards the older people rights, and the critical analysis of our latest very unique act 2007 we have discussed. So if you have any questions relating to COVID-19 and the rights of the older peoples, you can. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. We are very grateful to have you on today's webinar, and you have enlightened us with a wonderful session. So we have few questions from the registration. That
Yeah.
one question from Anita Mondol, that what should be the role of youth for the protection of the old people at the time of COVID pandemic?
Okay. So role of the youth, really, definitely, the young generation is the backbone of our society. So definitely they have some duties in each and every respect in our society. So for the protection of the older peoples, if I want to say about it, then definitely I must say that there must be some essential providing of health services and companionship with their senior old relatives or towards the older people. And if they have some knowledge about the goods and bads during the period of this COVID-19, they must using social media and different apps to spread accurate information. They also have some duty to speaking out to the older people for effective and equitable care, protecting everyone from the pandemic, and it means the safeguarding of people's mental health. The youth has also some duty to improve access to the life-saving testing, because the older people has not able to do this type of testing in a proper time. At that time, if the youths, if they extend their hands to the older peoples for this type of testing, it is really a great advantage for the older peoples. And of course, in this particular pandemic time, if they deliver food and sanitation to the older peoples, this is the, I think this is the best way to give something towards the society.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
And we have another question from Dr. Amita Sudan Chakraborty. And what role the university is playing to engage its law students to ensure the welfare of senior citizens?
Actually, law students are also the youth of our society. So the answer is not so different. But at that time, I must say that university should encourage the students to do the things voluntarily and try to provide the infrastructures for doing the same. Definitely, university has that type of role. I think so.
Thank you, sir.
Next.
Another question is from Rajiv Kumar Das. The challenges of the COVID-19 pandemic are different for various socio-demographic groups. According to the World Health Organization data from April 2020, more than 95% of COVID-19 deaths were, just a minute, deaths were among people over 60 years of age, and more than half of all deaths occurred in people of 80 years plus. So the question is that does the social change in structure of family from joint family structure to more nuclear family structures may have contributed to the detriment of elder person?
Definitely, this structural change from joint family to nuclear family is a big factor, no doubt about it. Very relevant point he raised. You know, in present Indian society, there is an emerging trend of making nuclear families. Sometimes it is happening by choice, and sometimes it is accelerated by the lust of modernization, by compulsion or occupational need. But in every case, senior persons are bound to live a lonely life. The moral duty under divine law to take care of one's parents is recognized in all communities. And there is a constant degradation of the said value system, and automatically government has no other option but to poke its nose into one's family. So definitely these structural changes affect the life of the older people, which also includes affect the whole society.
Okay, thank you, sir. And we have many questions in live chat, but few I'm reading. That is from Nabonita Sen. She asked, "Sir, in the wake of COVID crisis, hospitals has at times shown their medical negligence for individuals. So, how can the aged people be relaxed and assured of medical care and treatment? Please share your views, sir."
So the question relates with anxiety, I think.
Sir,
What
it's
is the
not about
question?
anxiety. I think she want to ask that about the hospitals, the negligence of the hospitals towards the old age people, towards the patients.
Actually, it is the common problem, not only the old age people,
Hmm.
but all the peoples. And definitely, we have learned, we have gathered some news from the news channels and also the newspapers that the hospitals are not properly functioning in the during this period, and definitely the old age people has already, they have different type of diseases, they're carrying different type of diseases, and for that, if they attacked by the present virus, then the hospital, they actually, this is not the whether it is a genuine news or not, I don't know. But the thing is, the hospital did not properly do their duties. Doctors, nurses, they are also the human being. So definitely some fear psychosis also arise from their minds. So that's why it is difficult to say whether the hospital, management of hospital, whether they properly work or not. But still, the older peoples are very much facing some problems during this COVID-19 period.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. And
Okay.
so, can you hear me?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Please.
Okay. Sir, the next question is from Lakshmi Narayan Mahato. How can the government relieve the older persons financially, which will be of great value to older persons in times of pandemic COVID-19?
Please repeat your question. Maitri, please repeat it.
Okay, sir. How can the government relieve the older persons financially, which will be of great value to older persons in times of pandemic COVID-19?
Actually, in this particular time, the government, central government and the state government, both the governments, they take some initiative to give the food, the rationing system, almost free for 2 to 6 months. And the older peoples also, they have a right to take this rationing system. And if the people, if they mutated this virus from other human beings, then the government uh, provides some medical facilities for testing and also for the treatment, absolutely free in the government hospital. So besides this, I don't know whether government already provides any financial help to the older peoples or not. I think no, government has no such type of decision to give any financial securities to the older peoples.
Okay, thank you, sir. And another question from Sadhana Gupta. Today, elderly persons are very much worried with social distancing. In such pandemic situation, how could they do their household work and other official work, keeping in view the social distancing?
No, Shadna, this is really a question you raised, that not only the older people, but also uh, the general people, they are facing many difficulties. If they have some work with the official works, or his personal bank related works, or if he want to go to the market, then definitely the government prescribes some rules, prescribes some norms, how you protect yourself from the viruses. So you should maintain it. And so far as older people is concerned, definitely it is another problem, because they are not able to do all these things for their health, for their mental illness. So at that time, the youth, the law students, what we have earlier, some students raised these questions. So they have some duty to help them. And obviously, in each and every respect, government also extends the time limit of different purposes, like the filing the return of the income tax, or to pay the EMIs to the banks. The government has extended the time limit for that. So if if your uh, your needs are within this sort of problems, then you have to wait for the better situation in future.
Okay, thank you, sir. And here I'm ending up this question answer round. And
Okay.
next, I'm suggesting Varsha Sinha to end up this session with the vote of thanks to our honorable respected sir and our participant. Thank you, sir. Varsha, can you hear me?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Please.
Am I
Yeah,
audible now?
yeah.
Yes,
Oh,
yes, yes.
um, we are very much happy and obliged to have such honorable guest with us for today's session. Thank you very much, sir, for giving us your valuable time and addressing the issue such beautiful manner. We are also very much thankful to all the enthusiastic participants for joining us today. Thank you very much, and please stay tuned.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay, 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 okay.
Okay, sir.